Hi, good morning, everyone. This is Han Vivian again, and thank you so much to join our show and hear our insights sharing story with our expert from Global. And today we have MJ. Hi, MJ.
Yeah.
How are
Good
you doing?
Afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are.
evening from
Oh,
Vietnam.
thank you so much, MJ. Yeah, to take our invitations, and we are so happy to connect with you virtually. But one day maybe we can see face to face. Yeah.
That'd be
So on
great.
behalf of on behalf of our audience, would you please share with us a bit about yourself, MJ?
Ooh, wow, that's a very broad question. Well, MJ Shaar, I have been evolving in the world of wellness for about 20 years at this point. I am a mom, a wife. I live in North Carolina. I love to spend time outdoors. I do yoga. I enjoy reading. And I think that connecting with people is very important. Not always as good at it as I would like to be, but I'm digging deeper into that topic these days because I feel like it really makes the world a better place. So, broad lines, here we go.
MJ, for phenomenal career achievements, and then you shortcut it into less than a minute of introductions. And that's too short for us. All right, so we're gonna examine your journey together today in this conversation. All right.
Okay.
Yeah. So allow us to travel time because everything has to have something started at the beginning, right? When Vivian was young, she wanted to become a singer, and so she only sang at school, but not on the stage. I wanted to become an astronaut, and then life didn't give me any chance to go into a different planet and jump in, like crazy over there. So when MJ was young, what was your dream about your future, though?
I have had various dreams, but they all revolved around the idea of sharing an experience with people
Mm.
and teaching them something at the same time. So at various times, I've been wanting to be an actress and I wanted to be in movies that were going to have like a lesson to them. Or I wanted to be a teacher and I wanted my lesson plans to be more like experiences than just, like ABC kind of thing. So I've always wanted to be involved in teaching and building experiences, like enough that a couple years ago I reconnected with an old friend from elementary school on Facebook. And she said, MJ, you're doing what you always said you were going to do. So this was very clear for me. But the moment where I decided what it was that I was going to share experiences and teach about happened when I was about 15. And at that point in my life, I lived in Canada, and in Canada, this was the year where my marks were going to determine what college I was going to be able to go to. And I just got overly stressed because I've always been very future oriented. And in my 15-year-old type A mind, I was thinking, if I don't have the best possible grades this year, then I won't make it to the best possible college in the program of my choice. And if that doesn't happen, I won't have the career of my dreams. And if that doesn't happen, I won't be as happy as I could be. And if that doesn't happen, I won't attract the right husband. And then, the whole of my life could unravel before my own eyes, right, in my imagination. All of that based on what my grades were going to be that year.
Wow.
And so I drove myself sick. I burnt out. And that's when I realized that no matter how hard you push, that's not, actually, let me rephrase that. That's when I realized that no matter how hard you want, if you push too hard, you're setting yourself back. Right? I had to miss a significant amount of school. When I returned to school, I had a paper from the doctors saying that I was not to do homework yet. I remember being in a class like this, because I would like wake up in the middle of the night to do extra homework or like pretend I was asleep so my parents would go to bed and then turn my light back on. I could not stop. And then I remember being in class like this one day and like almost passing out. And the teacher came and tapped me on the elbow and said, go to the nurse office. You need to go sleep. I don't know why you're here. And so I realized, okay, like this is not cool, and I need to help others learn from my mistake. I need to help them realize that if you burn yourself out, you're just setting yourself back a whole lot. So that's my story of how it all happened.
Wow, I'm sorry for how serious you were back then in looking forward into the future, and that make you got into a lot of stress and burnout like that. And actually, that you made it pretty well in turning it into a lesson for you, and transfer it to become a lesson that you can help others to learn from the mistake that you had, the experience that you had though. MJ, tell us, from that one up until you do now, there's a huge gap in between still, right? So how did you take the baby step toward into what you are doing now? Would you share with us?
Yes, every step at moving forward from that point was always towards reinforcing that goal. Like that's when I discovered what my life purpose was going to be, and I still haven't changed my mind. And not that, when people find their purpose, it should be the one enduring thing for the rest of their lives. Actually, I recommend that when people try to think about their purpose, they think of it as sneakers, not as a wedding dress. So, you hope when you shop for a wedding dress that it's going to be the one and only, and that, you're not going to have to shop for another wedding dress ever again. But when you choose sneakers, you're looking for something that's going to be comfortable and that you're going to use day to day, probably for a year or two, maybe three. But, I think that trying to find our purpose is too much pressure when you try and look for your whole life's purpose. You got to find something that's comfortable right now. But I just haven't changed my mind yet. So after graduating from high school, I did make it to a good college, and I took a degree in organizational behavior because I wanted to study the psychological part within organizations. And inside that program, there was a chance for some undergrads to teach a whole class to other undergrads. And so, of course, I signed up for that. And that was a very positive experience for me. My class actually achieved an average that was 4 points higher than what was supposed to be. And so that told me, woo, yeah, they're doing really good. And I couldn't have taught them to the test because I was not the one writing the test. I had no idea what was going to be on the exam. And then when the professor who had written the exam reviewed my grading, he said, you're actually a pretty tough grader. So that just reinforced that, okay, I can do this. I can do this. Let's go for it. When I graduated from undergrad, I said, I got to go experience the pressures of corporate life from within. I said, if I want to address them, then I have to know what they really feel like. And so I got hired in a bank. And at first I was doing what I could because, entry level, right? So I was it was a very small branch, and I was a bit of a teller, a bit of a loan officer, a bit of a counselor, all at the same time. Then I became I went to the regional office, and I became a trainer for the regional office in the corporate strategies for quality of service. So I reinforced my desire to teach and to reach different audiences. But then I realized, okay, this is really fun, but it's not teaching me the pressures of corporate life all that much because I'm not like on the side of like the people that have to bring in the numbers and all of that. So I went from there to being a branch manager. And then I really felt it. But as you can tell from this parkour so far, I did not have a whole lot of experience in banking per se. So I really didn't know what I was doing in terms of managing a branch. But what I did understand was that my role was to find who is good at what and try to capitalize on that. My role was also to try and remove the obstacles that were in the way of my employees and see if we could move further that way. I was very humble as a branch manager. I was very young to be a branch manager, and sometimes people would come to me and say, I want to speak to the manager, and I'd be like, it's me. So I knew what I didn't know, And for example, the person who was my assistant had been working at that branch longer than I had been alive.
Wow.
So obviously, I was not trying to, say, oh, I got it all figured out. I was really counting on them to help me help them so that we could figure it all out together. But that worked out to my advantage, I think, because it created an experience where it really was about team spirit. It really was about bringing the best in others because I didn't feel I had the answers. In fact, I didn't. So it worked out really well, and that was like my own little built-in experiment, I would say, like a pilot project for the rest of my career in how does it work when you don't focus so much on what you know and on your skills and on how you want things to be led or organized, and more when you lean into what the team knows and what they are capable of and what their best contributions are. And fortunately, it worked out well. I would say the bank didn't take a huge risk when they gave me that branch to lead because we were in a territory where there were 25 branches and we were 24th. We were like underperforming. The reason they gave me that branch was because there was a lot of wealth in the area, and the wealth came from the English population. And I was bilingual because I had attended English college, and this was in a French environment generally. So they were like, okay, you speak English, at least you can relate to the English speaking population. Maybe you can bring a little bit more of that wealth in. And so that's why they gave me the branch, and they thought, well, if you don't know what you're doing, it's not going to be a big deal because this branch is already severely underperforming. And I was there for 2 years, and by the time I left, we were like second or fourth, depending on how you measured things. We improved in customer service. We improved in our sales. We improved in the amount of wealth that was in the branch. And again, it's not because I was so great, it's because the team was great. And because all I did was give them a chance to shine. So then that reinforced my belief in all of that. And I decided, okay, I'm going to do a master's degree. And I decided to then move to Philadelphia. So I moved from Montreal, where I was born and raised, where I knew everybody around town. And I moved to Philadelphia to do a master's degree in applied positive psychology. I was lucky enough to study directly with Martin Seligman, who's the founder of the field. And then I learned a lot of the theories underlining some of the stuff that I had been doing, and a lot more that I was still completely unaware of. But that gave a lot of background into what makes people flourish, how can we help them thrive. And there was like the science that went with it, not just, oh, I feel like this makes sense, or I've read in a book that, this could help. I got the science, I got the deeper understanding, and now, ever since I graduated from that, I've been building programs to just throw that into the world and help corporations and individuals use it as much as possible so we can all create a better place. Yeah. So is that long enough now? Did you get enough details in that story?
Wow, it's a very beautiful story, MJ. And so you had the passion to teach people about to have a better experience since you were young, right? And that passion
Yes.
resonated with you for a very long time. That you decided to take on the real heat for you to understand the feelings from the inside, and then when you got that feelings, it's just strengthened your drives to further like make it happen. So and one thing that I wanna give you a big applause. You right after that you decided to have your own company and bring your service to the world, and that's very brave because a lot of people would rather go into the corporate life or work for somebody else so that they have an income, they have like a benefit program covered and stuff. But then you decided to go solo. So tell us, why did you decide just to go into the one world all by yourself like that?
So that's where the term work-life design comes to mind. So my husband and I are both from Montreal. When I started my company and my career, really, we lived in Philadelphia. So all of our family members lived far away. And we wanted to be able to visit them, which means I needed some time off, probably more often than most. My husband was also starting a business. And at first I was, well, I still am, a lot more organized than he is. So I was also trying to help him in terms of organizational skills and assistance and that sort of stuff. I was his support. So I wanted to have some extra time in order to be able to do that. But I knew I wasn't going to drive myself sick again, trying to do too much, right? I understood by then the importance of sleeping enough, of working out, of having a little bit of time for hobbies or, clearing your mind. So I felt like if I went in the corporate world, it was going to be too much demands and I was going to miss out too much on being able to visit my family. And so I said, I need to start something of my own where I'm the master of my calendar, where people aren't waiting for me to deliver this and that at different times, and where I can set the pace for myself. And to this day, I work part-time. I don't work 40 hours plus a week. I work about 20 hours a week because I have a 7-year-old, and he is the sweetest thing I've ever experienced, and I will not miss out on those years. So to him, mom doesn't really work because I work when he's in school, or sometimes I have to when he's asleep at night. And it's work-life design, Yes, if I worked more, I would make more, but it's not important to me. We make enough. We're comfortable. It's good. What's important to me is that the day I'm on my deathbed, I won't say, oh, I wish I had spent more time with my loved ones, because that's one of the most common regrets of the dying. And I don't want that regret. So I'm lining up my life and I'm designing my career so that I can enjoy what there is to be enjoyed at each stage of my life.
Wow. Congratulations, MJ, for being able to do something that really on your terms, and then have the fun of it, have the enjoyment of doing that, and have the people to find that spark of enjoyment in their lives also. I have, since you mentioned about the research, and then you do a lot of research in your works also, I want to get back to the notion of well-being and wellness at work, right? For a very long time, when we work for corporate, we always heard a terms that people are upgraded assets. But it seems like the corporate world, put that access onto the lot of tests and make the people burn out a lot. What happened to that? That what they say and what they're doing is totally not aligned. Can you share with us?
I wish I had an easy answer for that. I think that the pressures to always do more, even if you don't mean to put that pressure, right? Like, think about the days where we had to write somebody a letter instead of being able to text or send an email. It took a lot longer to write it, and it took a lot longer for it to get there. Therefore, the expectation of the pace at which things could happen was a lot slower. Now we have the convenience of email, but with that, the pressure that things need to happen faster and faster and faster. And so we send a lot more emails than we would have sent letters. And so there's a lot more emails to also read and deal with, no matter what that means, then we're generating a lot of work. Think about people like me who are self-employed, for example, right? I just gave a corporate example. Now let me give you an example for the self-employed. A couple years ago, we were going by word of mouth, trying to talk to our network about our availabilities or the services we had to offer. Now we have to be on LinkedIn, on Facebook, on Instagram, on Twitter, maybe even TikTok, maybe YouTube, all of these platforms function differently. So if you want to be effective, you got to learn all of their particularities and the algorithm and this and that. The content has to be tweaked each time. This is a ton of work that wasn't there just a few years ago. And I've been in and out of social media over the last several years because, first of all, I don't like it. For someone who works 20 hours a week specifically, it's a giant waste of time, if I can say. At the same time, there are times where I'm happy that I'm on it because, see, that's how we connected, and I'm happy to be here. And if you don't participate, then you're out of conversations that are important and meaningful. So, but we have just generated so much work for ourselves, and I believe that this example can apply in very many other domains, in very many departments inside organizations. And so the pressures to always do more and more and more are greater than the pace at which budgets become available to keep hiring more people to do all that extra work that we are generating for ourselves. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So, I heard this morning a keynote speaker at an event, and that was a big, prestigious event, who was saying it is a manager's responsibility to make sure that their employees have great lives. Like, you got to not just ask them, did you sleep enough last night, but also things like, when was the last time that you did something that impressed yourself? And I was like, no. Matt, first of all, I have keynotes titled Handle with Care and All You Need Is Love. I'm all about managers caring for their staff. I'm all about being friendly and being human and treating each other as equals and having great relationships. But managers are people too. Their plates are full as well. They have to manage the pressures of the people above them and the ones from below them. You can't hold them responsible for making sure that their employees have great lives as well. That's too much. Like, what if they're in the middle of a divorce? What if they just found out that their kid has leukemia, right? Of course they're going to binge watch Netflix this weekend, and they're not going to go like hike, the biggest mountain. They just have to deal with something big at the moment. So I'm bringing this up because I feel like we are adding too much pressure from on the work front with all the extra work that we are creating. And now more recently, the workplace wellness industry has started to add too much pressure for people to have great lives. People are burnt out. They are lonely. They're not going to shine right now. Like, let's just, and this coming from the positive psychology gal, right? I'm not about bringing people from a negative space to zero. I'm about bringing them from zero to a positive space. But right now, trying to make them reach a 9 or a 10 in how much their lives are fantastic, that also is too much pressure. Let's make them rise a couple steps, a couple numbers. Maybe you're, a 1 and a 4 is enough reach for you right now. And if we can see that, if we can accept that not everybody's life is going to look like what we want it to look on Instagram, then we can reduce the pressure on people. Because now, like, people feel defective. Oh, how come my life isn't as great as what I see on social media? Oh, how come, like, I don't look like I'm being followed by a photographer all week long? Like, no, just be a person, right?
Yeah.
And I think that we're starting to add too much pressure on that front as well. And that is not productive. It just makes people feel even more inadequate, which can paralyze them to start to take the small steps towards feeling better.
MJ, my wife and I had this conversation with each other, and when then we wonder what happened to us when we grow up, because when we were young, we like your boy, he at school, right? At school, he can make friends with everybody. He's enjoy life. He love and be loved and really open for everybody, right? But then when we grow up, there's something happened to us along the way that we no longer, like we have to wear different face, mask in our face, wear different hat to go to work, to go to, outside of work, and it makes us not happy anymore. And the stress then that caused stress from the within first already, and then plus all the works from everywhere, from the management upward, management downward, and that adding, many things on the plate for us. So tell us what happened along the way, MJ.
That's a very big question, and I don't pretend I have the answer, but I will make my best attempt.
Please.
So, I believe that there is too much pressure on our youth to do too much. To They have a tremendous amount of homework. Already, my son is in grade 2, and I can see that in grade 2, he's doing what I used to do in grade 3. In grade 1, he did what I did in grade 2. In kindergarten, he did what I did in first grade. So we're pushing the expectations younger and younger. Their little brains have not started to develop faster than they used to, but they have more to assimilate, more to do. And it starts right from kindergarten. But by the time they reach high school, they have to be involved in sports, right? Or if not sports, then at least 3 other big things, right? To fill up their curriculum, to show the world that they're good at something, to get that college application in. They have to start taking some SAT prep exams and that sort of stuff. And they have so much to do. We focus so much on what they do, and we forget to train who they are. We forget to give them a chance to discover what their passions are. It's like, you gotta be in that sport, you gotta do it so you get your college scholarship, and blah, blah, blah. It's too much. Like, my son likes hockey. We wanted to register him for a hockey team. He's 7 years old. The hockey team for his age group trains every Saturday morning at 7 a.m. and has a game every Sunday morning at 7 a.m. I'm like, the poor kid, when does he get to sleep in? Well, man, if you want him to be part of sports, that's got to be your priority. He's 7. He's 7. When do we get to take a hiking trip as a family on a weekend? Because we got to show him commitment for the sports, right? Well, ma'am, our season starts August 25th. It goes all the way through March 5th. So for this time of the year, you don't take your hiking weekends. You do it in a different season. I'm sorry. October is hiking month. Why do we have to be so dedicated to a sport so early? I don't agree. And the research actually agrees with me. A lot of the top athletes have discovered their sport later on in life. And younger, it's about sampling. It's about discovering who you are, what makes your heart sing. That's one of my questions. I love to ask people, what makes your heart sing? Most people don't know. So, to answer your question, too much pressure to do too much too young, and now their brains have that direction of, it's about what I do, it's about what I produce. I have to be the best at something, otherwise I'm no one. And that is just not true. Figure out your character strengths. Figure out, what is the best you in this world first. And then explore where that leads you.
Wow.
Now, again, I don't pretend I have all the answers.
You are the wonderful mom, MJ, because you pretty much kind of like giving all of these expectations to learn about who a child would be. But a lot of parents is more into the racing and competitions.
Yes.
And they also asking if the coach or teacher give my son more homework, give my daughter more homework. I feel like she or he still have time. And what would make different, MJ, for what you are doing? It's feel like it's a dream for all the kids to want to have a mom like you.
I don't know. I'm strict on certain things. He doesn't get to eat as much sugar as he would like. But I think, we found some hockey skills that is 9 weeks, 1 hour a week, that's it. So we still allowed him to explore his interest, but not in a way that adds as much pressure. So I think we need to find and support the opportunities that allow our kids to do a little bit of both, a little bit of, trying to build some skills, but at the same time having some free time to discover themselves. And I feel like if the demand for these sorts of things grows, and the demand for the highly competitive things reduces, then we can start to change the culture. But I'm afraid that I don't have a lot of people on my side. A lot of people are more like you said, right? They'd rather race to the next thing and go get all those goals and make sure that their kids do everything, which, by the way, often comes with more sleep deprivation, often comes with more meals grabbed from a takeout restaurant and eaten in the car. And research shows that family meals, when people sit around a table together, improves social skills, and that can help with negotiation, it can help with making friends, it can help with so many aspects of our lives. Kids who eat more family meals score more A's and maybe more B's, but fewer C's than kids who don't. It helps them feel more self-confident. It helps in so many ways, right? All the things we want for our kids that we push them through all these extracurricular activities for happens at family meals. And we tend to eat healthier when we eat at home as well.
True.
So I just think that, there's a misinformation because people think that they're going to go get that in all these other activities and you can foster it right at home. But sometimes also what happens is that mom and dad are so exhausted themselves, even if they did sit around the table, it would be hard to find the energy to have interesting conversations because everybody is just so depleted or deflated from their day. But we also need to treat ourselves that way, right? So like you must have noticed, our family, we are dual income, but I work part-time. So it's not full out dual income. And sometimes we have to make those choices too. Someone has to be there to care for the family and organize the family life, So I think that we need to change our perception, like women will say, and not that women have to stay home or that women are the only ones who can cook meals and do laundry and that sort of stuff, but women will say, I want to use my skills. Well, cooking is a skill too, and it's an important one. And more men are discovering that skill and finding that, wow, it's actually a fun change from always being on my computer. So, don't discard that as unimportant or secondary. It's actually like the heart of family life happens in the kitchen. So,
Wow.
my old-fashioned thoughts, maybe.
Well, MJ, I have two questions for this, and then I'll start with the elderly first. All right, the adult first. Because we've been there, we've been experienced the burns out, the depletions in our feelings and everything, but then we don't learn our lesson, and then we keep put that pressure onto our children, onto the younger generations, and ask them for more and more and more. So the question for me is, what's wrong with the adults too? Why didn't they realize their own, their own problem, their old down times, their old issues, and not learning from them, from this experience, no?
I think there's two parts. And again, I don't have all the answers, but my best attempt at answering your question, there's two parts. Number one, we are conditioned to think a certain way because this is what our experiences up until this point in our lives have taught us. And so if this is what we believe is the best way to be, it's hard to change that thought process. And so, our brain uses the pathways that it knows. It doesn't always, it seeks information that confirms what it already believes, and it seeks to discard information that goes against the grain of what it already believes. So it's hard to change those thought processes, and it's hard to change those pathways or those mental habits. So to decide to do something entirely different is difficult. The second part is what makes it even more challenging is that the whole culture is that way. And so let's say a woman would say, or I say a woman because it's the situation in our life, but it wouldn't have to be a woman in a different relationship in a different household. But let's say one of the two partners decides, you know what, working part-time might work for me and it might reduce our income a little bit, but I think it would generate a higher quality life overall. but then they see their friends who go out and get their nails done all the time and buy the new bag every season and wear the new jeans and, can go to this restaurant or go on vacation at this spot or buy the new, flat screen TV next size up or whatever. And they're like, oh, I would want all of that too. And so maybe I should keep working full time so I can keep on doing all of these things. Our culture, the commercials, the publicities, like our culture flashes the visible a lot more. There's much less emphasis on how does it feel on the inside. There's much less emphasis on showing someone running after their kids in the park. There's much more emphasis on showing what you got, what's visible, or showing that you are training your kids to become that too, right? So showing them at the game, showing that they scored, showing that they were playing in a concert or things like that. So and of course, the pressures are going to continue to be that because this is how corporations make money. They want us to keep buying their products. And there's publicity everywhere nowadays, right?
Yeah.
You can't even read an article online without now a new little video popping in the corner to tell you what you need to buy next. And so, and buying has become so easy, right? The minute I think I want something, I can, grab my phone, go on Amazon Prime, and it's here in 2 days. So the pressures that keep corporations churning at a good pace keep us wanting to be in the lifestyle that allows us to buy all this stuff. And so therefore it keeps up the pressure to always do more and not always be on the side of what is this experience feeling like.
Wow, beautiful sharing. Thanks for sharing that two things, MJ. I'd like to go into the second question, which is for the people who change, because you said the whole culture is that way, but you're not. So there are people want to be like you. There are people out there that they want to make that kind of change and be different, be more fulfilling at their life in a different way, right? So how how in the process they can make that change to happen though?
Whew, you have loaded question for me today. Loaded questions for me today. And again, I don't feel like I have all the answers. I spend a lot of time thinking about those questions and trying to figure them out. But I don't feel like I have a clear solution that applies to everyone. I think it starts with some introspection and realizing that what we're doing doesn't work. As long as you are as long as you are content with the status quo, you're not going to seek to change it. So, are you really happy with the way things are? Or is the dissonance strong enough for you to decide to take action? And sometimes that dissonance may not come when we look at ourselves. It may come when we look at our kids. Because I feel like a lot of us are teaching our kids habits that they will then spend the rest of their lives fighting against. If you let your kids, play video games all weekend because you are just too exhausted to go play outside with them, and you take them to their sporting events so that they can perform, and then you feel like, oh, they had their exercise, so it's okay to let them be on video games. And then in the midst of all that, you find yourself having to eat out at a takeout restaurant more often than you'd like, right? Now you're teaching them to, first perform really hard at their extracurricular, as opposed to it being a chance to relax and enjoy and discover who they are and what they're good at and have fun and connect with others. Second, you're teaching them to be sedentary outside of performance, which is also not great. Third, you're teaching them to have poor eating habits. And those are habits that they will have to spend the rest of their lives fighting against. And so maybe if you look at your own life, you're like, I can take this, it's okay, I can pull through longer. But if you look at your kid's life, maybe you're like, oh, yeah, maybe that's not what I want to teach them. Maybe that's not how I want to set them up, especially since we know
Mm.
that I think it's something like 3%, like something ridiculously small, um, is the percentage of people who keep themselves in shape through organized sports after college.
Mm.
So adults don't stay in shape because of organized sports. And so we have to teach kids to also stay in shape outside of organized sports, hence the hiking trip on weekends. Um, so, so I think that it starts, to get back to your question, it starts with an introspection and deciding, is this how I want the story of my life to be?
Mm.
If I were to write, my own eulogy,
Mm.
what would people say about me the way I am now? And is that good enough?
Mm.
Is that what I want it to be like? If I were to ask my kids what the story of their childhood was like by the time they're grown-ups, what would they say? And is that what I would want them to say?
Mm.
If you decide that, yes, all of that is great, fantastic, you have succeeded at designing a work-life balance that works for you, that you believe works for your children, and you are part of the minority, keep it up.
Mm.
If you decide that, no, I'm kind of in a system, in a situation that just keeps on unraveling and I don't know how to stop it, then we need to start taking action. And it's probably going to start with small but significant action to make changes. And so maybe there are things that you do that you don't need to do so much of. Maybe you're part of some committees. Maybe you have committed it to a board of directors somehow, somewhere. Maybe at work you have taken on extra responsibilities that you can start to let go of. Maybe you need to approach your manager and talk about the fact that you are feeling overburdened and that some of it needs to, have the conversation about what can I let go of, or what can we move to a different department? Can we hire someone? Can we let go of certain practices that no longer serve us well? That sort of stuff. Maybe you're in the habit of continuing to read some old periodicals because you've always done that, and the information in them is no longer that relevant because or that pertinent. Or maybe you can take a break for a few years because you know your research so well that each new issue isn't informing you all that much right now, and that's the one thing that you can cut out. Right? Start to look at what's too much. And I really want to invite people to look at their use of social media. Right? When you are on social media, ask yourself, is this adding value to my life right now? Is this serving me well? Is this helping me be a better person and become more of my best possible self, no matter what that means to you? If yes, then this is a good session. Keep it up. You're learning, you're growing, you're connecting, fantastic. If no, sign out. We often just get wrapped into it, and suddenly a whole half hour is gone, and as a result of that, we no longer have time for other more important things. So, stop yourself here and there throughout your day and ask yourself, is this serving me well? Is this something that helps me become more of whom I really want to be? If yes, keep it up. If no, find more and more ways to try and get rid of it in your life, or try to, eliminate. Maybe you can ask somebody else who might be better at this than you are to help you out, and, other resources of the sort.
MJ, we all have that moment of reflection to realize something is not working well for us. I believe that almost all of us have that moment, right? And then we realize that things need to be done differently, and but the old habit has found its ways to get back, in a week or so, in a month or so, in a year or so, and we get back to the same old routine, and some same old thinking. So in your line of work, you have people to change. Is there any, you know, practice that we can implement that make us, like committed a little longer, be more curious to the change, and stay in the change for that long? Would you share with us?
Yes, Yes, and again, I don't pretend to have all the answers, but here is something that I feel is helpful.
Mm.
Um, a lot of times, what stops us from making a change is the energy,
Mm.
because change is hard and it requires physical energy or it requires mental or emotional energy, and we just give up before we really start.
Mm.
So I believe that if we boost our energy in the first place, it will help us. Now, boosting our energy is also something that can require a little bit of extra time, right? So maybe we need to sleep a little bit more, or to start to meditate, or to start to exercise a little bit more so that we can boost our energy. But here's how I suggest we do that, which is different from what most people do. Most people will say, okay, I really have a hard time sleeping, so I need to focus on my sleep habits. Or my food habits are really bad. If I ate better, it might give me better energy, so I gotta fix my food habits. And I believe that this is the perfect way to make sure you fail. If sleep is your problem, then it is not your solution. If food is your weakness, it is not your solution. What we know is that our sleep, our food, our mood, and our exercise habits are all interrelated. If you improve any one of these four categories, you will improve the other three, or you will remove your physical obstacles to the other three. So, for example, if you have a hard time managing your food intake, by sleeping a little bit more, you will produce first more serotonin, and serotonin is like self-discipline in liquid for your body. So it will help you resist the cravings. You will also produce less cortisol, and cortisol produces high sugar, high fat, high salt food cravings. So by sleeping more, you will experience fewer cravings and you will have more self-discipline to face them. So you're making yourself more likely to succeed in the food category by sleeping a little bit more. So what I recommend when people want to initiate a change is don't go at the big gorilla first. Start change in an area where you feel a little bit more empowered first, and then build on your initial victories. So if you're looking to make some big life changes, going at the biggest challenge, the biggest topic is probably not going to be easy. I mean, some people can do it. Most people can't, which is why we have a culture that looks like our culture does at the moment, right? If instead you can start by a change that will seem a little bit more approachable, a little bit less threatening, so you can prove to yourself, first of all, that you are capable of change, and second, so that you can rise your energy a little bit, so that when you then later on try to tackle that bigger, more challenging change, you are more empowered to do so based on the previous changes you've already done. So that would be my piece of advice on that. If you have more clarity of mind, if you have more physical power, more endurance, more resilience, thanks to other changes you've already made, you are better equipped to make the big change later.
MJ, I think Vivian and my daughter will be so happy hearing this. So tomorrow, if I call them early, they will say, MJ told us that we need to sleep more, so we're gonna resist more on the on food and that stuff. But thanks for the advice. It makes a lot of logical sense, and I think it's also backed with science. So thanks a lot for that sharing, MJ.
Oh, and here's another little tidbit. When a change makes us feel positive emotions, when we feel good about the change, we are 4.5 times more likely to stick with it than when we don't feel good about the change. So it's important to make changes that make us feel good in the first place. Like for some people, for example, exercise is torture. They hate feeling their heart rate being up. They hate sweating. It kills their brushing, and that really, makes for a bad day after because they have a bad hair day. That change doesn't elicit positive emotions for these people. They are very unlikely to stick with it. So it's important when we want to make changes to start with changes that will make us feel good in the moment so we can stick with it long term and reap the benefits. So another little tidbit that I really wanted to throw in there.
Wonderful. MJ, I wanna ask you about this because you leading the change in the space of wellness. You create that change for a long time, right? And the pandemic hits globally. Companies starting to realize, people starting to realize the importance of wellness, well-being, and having purpose in life. It works. So, how do you feel seeing the change that drastically improved over the years in the past 2 years? How do you feel it from the inside of you?
To see the change that had that the changes that have improved, is that what you said?
Yes, yes.
Um, well, it's funny because in the last 2 years, people have realized that they don't want to be always feeling like they're under the gun anymore.
Mm.
People have realized that they want to make more time for their family. And they've realized that maybe we had gone too far in our expectations of performance and how much one person can do.
Mm.
At the same time, we are seeing higher than ever rates of burnout and depression and loneliness. So these two things don't go together, right? We're more aware of the importance of taking care of ourselves and of who we are, and yet it seems like we are failing more and more to do so.
Mm.
Or maybe it's the awareness. Maybe it's the awareness that's making us realize just how bad it had been, and we haven't yet made the change. So you're asking, how do I feel about all of this? I feel hopeful, but a little bit confused,
Oh.
because you would think that with the greater awareness come more steps towards resolving that gap. And I'm not sure it's happening yet.
Mm.
But like the change that's needed is like a tidal wave. And I don't think the market can take it all on at once. It's going to need to happen slowly.
Yeah.
And I think that maybe we did need to really hit the bottom before we can propel ourselves back forward or up from it. And I'm hoping that these epidemic levels of loneliness and burnout and depression are that bottom, so that we can now start to have, I don't want to say more productive conversations, because I think we have been having productive conversations. It's more the what are we doing with it part that's been lagging behind. And I'm hoping that now we start to realize that, okay, like sharing strategies and information is great, but to actually do something, like each of us need to start to do something. I'll give you an example. One of my friends I saw on LinkedIn refused some extra homework that her daughter was given. They were supposed to observe the stars and then write certain things in a journal every day during their fall break. And my friend wrote the teacher, we will absolutely observe the stars and learn what we can, but we will not be writing a paragraph each day during vacation. Break is to break. Mm-hmm. It is to empty our minds of the expectations, of the pressures, of the to-do list, and to just be. Mm-hmm. And so we will love looking and not doing anything after. So we can just soak in the experience without the expectation of having to put something on paper after. Thank you for your understanding. Wow. Now, I don't know how the teacher reacted, but I think that these small acts of rebellion here or there are starting to be necessary. Mm-hmm. And when it's your boss, it might take a different tone. You might not say, I will not do that assignment, thank you very much. You might not go about it this way. You might want to say, can we discuss the necessity of this extra assignment? Because here's what I believe is productive, and here's what is asked, and I believe that we could probably adjust the expectation a little bit. And I think that those who have the courage to do that, first of all, might be more likely to not be the ones who burn out. So they will endure in the long run. But I think they might be highly respected for having the guts to speak up and to say these things, right? They might not be like the one who refused, they might be the one who spoke up for the team. And so they might be the ones who end up being in leadership positions faster than we realize. And I'm hoping that they are. And then when they are in the higher roles, I hope they remember that these steps that they took to unburden themselves and their colleagues also still apply to their teams.
Well, MJ, thanks a lot for sharing this point because we see a lot of that's react side of this and then the response side of this, right? A lot of things a lot of activities that we see in this part of the world is a reaction to what is needed. So they do a lot of activities talking about the burns out, well-being and stuff like that. But it's just checklist on the Outlook. We want to see something that permanently in response to that one that that can pave the way and that can pave the way for a a permanent change for the better of the workforce. And 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 thanks for bringing that up, MJ.
And earlier, I think I kind of got lost in where I went, and I forgot to bring up when I was saying managers should not be responsible to make sure that their employees have a great life. I also wanted to say instead, I would love to see managers bring up to the higher echelons the concern that there is just too much that is asked and requested. And I believe that their role is to go to bat to make sure that there is less demands coming down, and that frees people to have better lives, but to go figure that out for themselves. So yeah, that was the other part that I think I didn't quite finish there earlier, but I think that it's important. Managers should be kind of a buffer to identify what is truly needed and what is just good to have that we possibly could just do without.
So how can we help leaders to really open for that kind of feedback from the managers so that they will allow the manager to speak up and be able to say, hey, that's enough, we need to have more more space, more room for something else?
Yeah, it's difficult. It for sure is difficult because nobody wants to go to their boss and say, hey, like you're just asking too much. Nobody wants to do that because then they're afraid to be looked as a slacker, and they want to be the performer. They want to be the one who does it all, the one who's capable. Maybe it comes in, the surveys, the employee satisfaction or the employee engagement surveys. Maybe it comes in, my team does not use as much days off for sickness, but they use their days off for vacation. That's a better use of a day off. Maybe it comes with that sort of information. I wish I had a more concrete answer for you. This is definitely, where the rubber meets the road, and this is definitely the area that's so sticky that we can't quite get through it. And I evolve more in the realm of helping people have better lives. I evolve less in the realms of coaching leadership. And so,
sure.
I got to defer to other of your guests, I guess, on that one a little bit.
MJ, leaders also need better life too themselves. So if they don't change, they're not going to have better life themselves, right?
Yeah, and that part I can help them with.
MJ, we have two last questions for you for this conversation. I know that we said it's about an hour, but now we passed the time, so we have two last questions. Do you have time for that?
I do. I just need to plug in my laptop. Give me 1 second because we're about to get disconnected.
Sure.
I'm back.
We're not gonna be disconnected, right? I have two last question. I'll start first one, and then I'll let Vivian finish the last one. All right. So MJ, Vivian and I are in the quest to help people to improve their ability to think, because we believe that thinking is the first thing that help people to change in their life and make positive change, right? But our ability to think these days diminishing is not increasing. So every chance that we can interact and talk to, big thinker, the one that the works involve a lot of thinking like you are, we would like to ask this question. MJ, how have you been helping yourself to expand your ability to think?
Reading,
Reading.
um, giving myself time to think.
Wow.
You can't leave it in the back of your mind while you do other things. You have to put pen to paper or to type up ideas that you can then reread and challenge. I believe in the power of doing that. So having dedicated time to just ponder some of the bigger questions is important. And then testing out with, you need to have a few good advisors or mentors or colleagues that you can share your ideas and your challenges with, see what they think of the possible answers you are thinking about, see how they might augment your own thought process as well, see how they might challenge you, and maybe they bring up things you had not thought about. But I think that this is also a very important step in keeping up with our own personal growth. Those are
Wow.
my three ways.
Wow, wonderful. So timing, reading, and then find the people that you can share the ideas so that and listen to that that side of the story, side of the conversations, right? Thank you very much.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Thank you, MJ. Yeah, and here come the last questions, and we love to hear this from our guest speaker. We know a bit about MJ when she was 15 years old. She wanted to be a teacher and trainer, and how she changed, moving from bank with the leadership role to become a new, entrepreneur her own with work-life design, and then a lot of advices that we can learn from you from this talk. So the next questions is a bit about future, MJ. So something that you're working on or something you're about to do that exciting, and we would love to celebrate with you in advance.
Well, thank you for asking. I am just starting a YouTube channel.
Woo!
So in my own work life design, I feel like my son needs me home, and when I travel to go deliver keynotes and presentations and that sort of stuff, it's exciting and it's fun, and I love connecting with people face to face. But at the same time, there's a cost because mom isn't home, and so I'm looking to do less of the traveling part and more video work. So in the past, I've had a couple clients because of COVID that have asked me to deliver my keynotes on pre-recorded videos, not so much Zoom. I mean, it has happened too, but pre-recorded videos where you can insert some graphics and where you can have like some stock footage inserted and where you can, move from like seeing me further up and closer in and that sort of stuff. Like I find that very exciting to like edit video and make it like an experience in itself. And people are more and more interested in consuming content on video anyway. So in order to kind of market that service, I'm starting a YouTube channel to try and get people engaged with the world of video and the solutions that I can bring. And so right now, YouTube has not yet allowed me to choose a handle. So you have to just go on YouTube and search MJ Shaar, SH, 2 A's, 1 R, and then you can see the content that I'm starting to create for the world.
We will.
So I'm excited about that journey.
MJ, I'm gonna subscribe to your YouTube channel right after we close this conversation. We end this conversation, okay? And I would love to learn from you. I would love to see what you show to the world and promote it together with you. So, congratulations!
And I try to keep the videos short. It's just 5 minutes. So if there's one that piques your curiosity, you don't have to invest a whole half hour in it. It's short tip, short story, short piece of research, and there you go. Hopefully you can use it.
Absolutely, absolutely. I will be subscribed right after this. MJ, thanks a
Thank
lot
you.
for spending your morning and with Vivian, with me, and the audience of the show. There's a lot that we learned from you today, and we want to say thank you for being so generous to join our show and share your stories. Okay.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It's always fun for me to have a chance at sharing, hopefully, some inspiration and help me reach my goal of making the world a slightly better place through positive psychology. So thank you for having me.
Thank you. And
Thank
tell
you
your
so
husband
much.
and your son that MJ, the food in the Vietnamese food in the States is similar to the Vietnamese food in Vietnam, but the environment is totally different. So you guys travel here, we are here, we're gonna take you guys around and try some local food here, okay?
We'll sit down for a family meal. Perfect.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you very much. Bye MJ for now. Enjoy the weekend.
Have a great night. I know it's late for you guys, so you go to bed and sleep tight tonight.
All righty, we will. Thank you very much. Thank you,
Bye bye.
Vivian.